The pairing protocol begins. Liam Cross stood in the middle of a smooth metal room, the walls glowing with soft blue lights. Everything felt cold and quiet. His boots made a faint sound as he shifted his weight. He had been a soldier for 5 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. The door in front of him hissed open. She stepped and she was tall at least a head taller than him. Her skin was silver with soft patterns that shimmered when she moved. Her eyes were sharp, glowing with a deep violet light. Her armor looked like it was made from stone and bone, thick and heavy. This was Zyra, a warrior from the Valky species. Her people were feared across the galaxy. Liam had read the reports. Zyra had crushed enemies in battle. She had never lost a duel, and now, according to the Galactic Peace Council, she was going to be his partner. The room's lights did slightly. A soft voice spoke through the walls. Welcome to the pairing chamber. Your 30-day trial begins now. Liam raised an eyebrow. Zyra crossed her arms and gave him a cold look. I do not agree with this, she said. Same here, Liam replied. I didn't sign up to be some lab rat. The Galactic Council had created the pairing protocol to bring peace between humans and the Valky after years of war. They wanted to test if forced bonding between soldiers to create unity. Each pair would live together, train together, and if the bond worked, possibly start something more permanent. Liam couldn't believe it. 30 days with someone who looked like she could snap his neck without breaking a sweat. Great. Zyra moved first, walking around him in a slow circle. She sniffed the air, her eyes narrowing. You smell strange, soft, not like the others. Well, that's comforting, Liam said, trying to hide his discomfort. She stopped in front of him. I do not trust you. Likewise, he said, trying to match her steady gaze. The soft voice spoke again. You will now be shown to your shared quarters. Meals, training, and rest will be scheduled. Early withdrawal is allowed only with council approval. Zyd didn't wait. She turned and walked through the next door. Liam followed, his heart fewing in his chest. The shared quarters weren't what he expected. The space was wide and filled with soft lights and plants from both their home planets. There were 2 beds, one clearly designed for a Velkar, the other for a human. In the middle was a common area with a small table, some books, and a screen showing the stars outside the station. This is strange, Zyra said, her voice quieter now. Liam nodded. Yeah, like they want us to play house or something. He sat down on the edge of his bed and took off his boots. Zyra stayed standing, watching him like a hawk. She didn't trust him, and honestly, he didn't blame her. The silence stretched for a long time. Why do you think they paired us? Liam asked. Zyra looked at him carefully. The match rate was 97.8%. That is high. Too high to be a mistake. Liam frowned. Match rate? You mean genetics? Yes, she said. Our blood speaks to each other. It remembers something old, something strong. Liam leaned back. Well, I hope that blood knows how to do dishes. For a moment, Zyra said nothing. Then, to his surprise, she let out a small, rough laugh. It was low and strange, like a purr and a growl at the same time. Perhaps you are not as weak as you seem, she said. Liam smiled. And maybe you're not as scary as you look. She stepped closer. The smile faded from his face. Do not test me, human, she said, voice hard again. I will not be tamed. I'm not here to tame anyone. Liam said softly, just trying to survive the next 30 days. He turned away and lay back on the bed, closing his eyes. Zyra didn't move. She stood there for a long time, watching him. Her heart beat a little faster, though she didn't know why. Humans were soft, emotional, full of noise, and warm. Her people had none of that. But this one, he was different. As the room dimmed for sleep mode, Zyra sat on the edge of her own bed. She looked at Liam, his chest rising and falling slowly. This one, she whispered to herself, smells like a true mate. Hostile chemistry. The days that followed were filled with silence, tension, and a low hum of artificial air flowing through the station's walls. Liam Cross had survived battlefield chaos, alien ambushes, and close calls with death, but nothing had prepared him for this strange silence, this awkward cold dance between him and Zyra. The Velir warrior moved like a living weapon. Every step she took was precise, like a blade gliding through space. Her sharp eyes studied everything Liam did. She barely spoke, and when she did, her words were clipped, distant, and sometimes laced with quiet warning. She didn't want to be here, neither did he, but both were trapped in this 30-day experiment that was quickly turning into a test of patience, pride, and survival. Their first training session together was a disaster. The pairing program required all matched Partners to spar daily learn to fight, as a team move as one but Liam and Zyra. Weren't moving as one, they weren't even moving as two, they were colliding like. Makar on the training deck, Liam circled her carefully, hands raised, trying to find her rhythm. Zyra didn't wait. She lunged without warning, her elbow caught his side with a force that sent him flying across the M. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air. You hesitated, she said, standing over him. Liam groaned and held his ribs. I blinked. Blinking is weakness. She replied, you cannot blink in battle. He sat up slowly. Breath ragged, remind me not to play cards with you. She didn't laugh this time. The station's eye, soft and ever-present voice interrupted. Pair bond strength, unstable physical. Compatibility high, emotional essence low. Continue interaction. Zyra turned her back on him. Your people rely too much on emotion you feel before you think it. Makes you soft. Liam stood, still holding his side. Maybe, but feelings are what keep us human. She didn't answer. Instead, she left the training room in silence, her silver skin glowing faintly under the blue lights. Later that evening, Liam sat alone in their shared quarters, a cold compress on his ribs and a bitter taste in his mouth. He hated this. He didn't like being pushed into something without a choice, especially not something as personal as this. The idea of bonding with someone, especially someone like Zyra, felt wrong, forced, but something strange had started to grow in him. Not affection, not yet, maybe curiosity, or maybe it was respect. He had seen how disciplined she was, how every move she made had purpose. She was terrifying, yes, but not cruel. She didn't hurt him to cause pain. She hurt him because that's how she was taught to protect herself. He heard the door open and looked up. Zyra walked in silent, as always, holding a plate of food. She placed it on the table and sat across from him. I do not eat alone, she said. Lion blinked. Thanks, I guess. He took a bite of the Velier food. It was dry, spicy, and unlike anything he had ever tasted. He coughed a little. Zyra raised an eyebrow. Too strong for your kind, she asked. Too strong for my tongue, he muttered. Zyra watched him for a moment, then did something unexpected. She pushed a small bowl toward him. It contained a sweeter version of the meal, milder and more balanced. This one is made for younglings. Try it. Liam looked at her. Surprise, you're offering me baby food. You survived my elbow, you can survive this. He chuckled. She didn't laugh, but there was a faint flicker in her eyes. Something warmer, something unsure. Later that night, Zaya stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Lion lay on his bed, watching her from behind, half closed eyes. The room was quiet, but not in a bad way. It was a shared silence, not war, not peace, but something in between. Why are you really here? He asked softly. She didn't look at him. I was born in war, raised in pain. The council said I would find balance and bonding. They told me I would learn something new. And are you? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, almost too softly to hear, I do not know yet. Liam sat up, same. Then before the lights dimmed, Zyra turned and looked at him, really looked at him. There was no hatred in her eyes, this time no anger, just confusion. You do not act like the others, she said. You mean other humans? No. She said, other soldiers. You smile. When you hurt, you speak gently. When challenge, you are either foolish or something else. Liam leaned back with a tired sigh. Maybe both. She walked to her bed and sat down, facing away from him. Her voice was low. I felt your pain today, not just in training, something deeper. You carry wounds that are not visible. Lamb didn't respond. He didn't have to. She was right. As the light dimmed and sleep mode began, Zyra stayed awake longer than usual. Something was happening inside her, something she didn't understand, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't want to be alone. The secret behind the program. Days passed, and something began to shift. Liam Cross no longer counted. Every minute of the 30-day trial, the pain in his ribs had faded, replaced by an odd sense of rhythm. Wake, train, eat, talk, sleep. Sometimes he and Zara argued. Sometimes they sat in silence. Other times they just shared space, and strangely, it didn't feel as uncomfortable as before. But deep down, Liam still couldn't shake the feeling that something about the pairing protocol wasn't right. He had always trusted his instincts on the battlefield. They'd saved his life more than once, and now those same instincts told him that this program wasn't just about diplomacy or peace. It was too carefully designed, too personal, and too scientific. On day 12, while Zyra was busy meditating in the gravitation chamber, Liam did something Reckless, he used a technician's badge he had borrowed during a supply run and snuck into the restricted wing of the station. Was quiet there too, quiet. The lights flickered dimly and the walls felt tight colder. He passed labs filled with glowing vials, strange machines, and data. Screens flashing with unread alien code, but the further he went, the more human. The files became then finally, in a quiet chamber, he found what he was looking for. A console labeled pairing protocol genetic alignment reports. He tapped through the files, and what he found made his stomach twist. The program wasn't about not really. The real purpose was to find highly compatible pairings between different species, especially between humans and the Vaki. The goal wasn't just social bonding, it was biological. Genetic tests had been run on every participant before they arrived, not just for compatibility, but for breeding strength. Liam scrolled through the files, his fingers shaking. Every pair was selected based on the chance of creating a powerful hybrid offspring, not for love, not even for diplomacy. They were building something soldiers' beings that could survive war, resist disease, and adapt to any planet. And he and Zyra, their match rate was the highest ever recorded, 97.8%. Liam leaned back, feeling sick. He had been forced into a role without knowing it. He wasn't just some peace ambassador. He was a potential genetic donor. They weren't asking him to bond. They were preparing him to breed. And worse, the same was true for Zyra. He returned to the quarters quietly. He didn't mention anything at first. Zyra was there polishing her armor. She looked up, sensing something was wrong. You smell like secrets, she said. Liam hesitated. Then slowly he sat down across from her. Zyra, he said, why did you agree to this program? She placed the cloth down and looked at him with steady eyes. Because I had no choice. Liam nodded slowly, saying. He paused and added, did you know what it was really about? She didn't speak right away. Then she said something that surprised him. Yes, Lamb. Blinked. You knew not all of it, she said, voice low. But I suspected. My people do not believe in bonding for peace. They only bond for strength, for survival, for legacy. He felt like the floor had shifted beneath him. So why didn't you tell me? Zyra looked away. Her voice was quiet. Because I wanted to see if we could be more than what they wanted us to be. Liam's heart thudded. He didn't know what to say. Zara stood up, pacing the room. Her posture was tense like a storm building, and inside her, I was born in the first generation of Velair training camps. She said we were raised to fight, not to feel. They told us our worth was in our power, not our hearts. When they said the program could create something new, something that could end war, I believed them. She turned to face him. But I never thought I'd meet someone like you. Liam stood to, his voice quiet. I didn't expect someone like you either. The air between them changed. It wasn't just tension anymore. It was deeper, sadder, real. We're not tools, Liam said. We're not breeding stock. We're people. Zyra nodded slowly. Yes, but they won't stop, not unless we show them what real bonding looks like. Liam tilted his head. Real bonding, not forced, not planned, something chosen for the first time. Zyra stepped closer to him without her usual sharpness. She reached out just barely, brushing her fingers against his hand. The contact was light, almost nothing, but it sent a shiver through both of them. If we must bond, she whispered, then let it be by choice. They stood there in silence, hands barely touching, eyes locked. Outside their quarters, the station continued to hum. Scientists watched from hidden screens, files, updated data recorded. But inside that quiet room, something else had begun. Not to bond. They had designed something much stronger, something human. The mating instinct activates on the 15th day of the pairing protocol. Something shifted deep within Zyra. At first, it was barely noticeable. Her senses became sharper. Her body grew warmer. Her breathing changed. Even when she was at rest, she tried to ignore it. She told herself it was just the effects of the environmental change or the stress of constant monitoring. But her instincts, ancient and powerful, whispered the truth. The cycle had begun for the Veyri. This was known as the instinct awakening. It was part of their biological design, deeply connected to their history of war and survival. When a compatible mate was nearby, one who triggered the correct genetic and emotional signal, the body responded, the heart, the mind, and even the soul began to align. And if the alignment wasn't completed, it could lead to physical and mental collapse. Zyra knew this. Every warrior did, but she never thought it would happen with a human, especially not with Liam. She tried To distance herself, she skipped meals with him. She avoided training. She stayed in the meditation chamber longer than usual, forcing her body to remain calm. She clawed at the walls of her self-control like a beast in a cage, but her body betrayed her the warmth inside. Her chest kept growing, pulsing like a quiet drum, and it was calling to him. Lion noticed something was wrong almost immediately. He wasn't a scientist, but he wasn't blind either. Zyra's skin, normally smooth and silver, now had a faint glow. At the edges her pupils stayed dilated longer. She trembled sometimes when he got too close, even though she tried to hide it. One evening, after returning from the observatory deck, he found her sitting in the dark. Her armor was off, her hands were clenched into fists, her breathing was shallow. Zyra, he said gently, what's going on? She didn't answer it at first. Her voice, when it came, was tight and filled with pain. Do not come closer, Liam. Stop, you're shaking, you're not okay. She turned her head just slightly enough for him to see her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I am not sick, she said. I am transforming. He moved a little closer, slow and careful. What does that mean? Zaya swallowed hard. My kind. When we are near a true match, the body begins to change. A connection grows stronger. It starts as instinct, then it becomes neat. Liam's face softened. Is it dangerous? Yes. She said, if the bond is rejected, if the connection is broken before it is complete, it can destroy us. He stepped closer. What do you need me to do? Her eyes locked onto his, and for the first time Liam saw fear in them. I need you to choose, she whispered. If you're not willing, I will break. If you accept, we will bond permanently. Lion's breath caught in his throat. He had been forced into this program, pushed into a role he never asked for, but now the choice was his. No council, no rule, no system, just him and Zyra, and the truth, he didn't want to see her suffer. He knelt in front of her, slow and careful. I don't know what this bond means for the future. I don't know what they've done to us or what we're supposed to become, but right now I know I don't want to lose you. Zyra's hands, still trembling, reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were warm. Her eyes flickered with light and emotion. You are not like others, she whispered. You speak with kindness. You see me not as a weapon, but as a being. Liam placed his hand over hers. Because you are. A quiet hum filled the room. The eye monitoring their quarters sent a silent alert to the council. Bond sequence initiated, but inside the room there was no sound except for breath and heartbeat. Zyra leaned forward until her forehead touched Lime's. Her voice, barely audible, carried words she had never said to anyone. I do not want to bond because of the council. I want to bond because of you. Lion's heartbeat faster, not from fear, from understanding. Then let it be real, he said softly. Not because of the program, because of us. Her body trembled once more, then still the glow around her brightened, wrapping both of them in a soft golden light. Outside in the quiet halls of the station, scientists scrambled to monitor the readings. Energy levels were spiking. Neural patterns were sensing. Emotional frequencies matched at 99%, but inside that room none of that mattered in that moment. Zyra wasn't a Velk warrior. Liam wasn't human soldier. They were just two souls who had found each other in the most unlikely way, and for the first time since arriving, Zyra felt peace. The rebellion from within the bond between Lamb and Zura changed everything. The quiet after their connection, the room felt lighter, warmer. For the first time, Liam didn't feel like a prisoner in the program, and Zyra no longer looked like a warrior preparing for war. Something gentle had awakened in her eyes. They moved together differently now, subtly mirroring each other, breathing in rhythm. Their thoughts weren't fully linked, but there was a pull, of thread tying them closer with every moment. But peace never lasts long on the station. The rebellion came without warning. It started in the lower chambers, where support systems, engineering, and drone control were handled. The explosion was small, but precise. Systems blinked out. Alarms flashed red across the walls. The soft voice of the EY stuttered, then fell. Silent, the lights flickered and dimmed. Then came the chilling message. This is not peace, this is slavery, masked as science. A rebel faction made up of humans, Velkar, and other species who had lost loved ones to the Council's experiments had breached the station. They called themselves a Broken Oath, and they had only one goal: to shut down the pairing protocol. Forever Lamb and Zyra were still in their quarters when the first tremors hit. Zyra sprang into motion, instantly grabbing her armor and sliding into it with practiced speed. Liam followed, pulling on his gear even As confusion clouded his mind, what's happening, he asked, already reaching for. His emergency pack Zyra's voice was sharp a breach I heard in the air. Ducked rebel frequencies, they stepped into the corridor. It was chaos drones. Buzz overhead malfunctioning smoke. Spill from vents a siren wailed then. Died other pairs ran past them, some together, others shouting in panic none. Of them knew what was coming next, but Zyra did her people had rebelled. Before always in silence, first and in fire, they will come here, she said they. Know you and I have bonded. We are the proof the council needs. They will want to destroy that proof Liam's heart. Pounded, so they're not just attacking the station. They're coming for us, yes. Zyra replied, drawing a curved blade from her back. They are coming to kill us. They moved quickly through back halls, dodging fire and smoke. Zyra guided him. Like a shadow, her senses. Leading the way, they found a safe room deep in the training wing sealed thick-walled, and off the main grid Zyra slammed the door. Shut and locked it with a coat. Liam sank to the floor, breathing hard. This is insane. I thought the rebels were just angry. I didn't think they'd go this far. Zyra crouched beside him, checking a small device on her wrist. They are desperate. They believe the bond program is a lie. They think we are puppets. Liam looked at her. Are we? She met his gaze. No, not anymore. A few minutes passed, intense silence. In the eyes, emergency backup activated. A soft voice, barely more than a whisper, spoke through the wall, warning. Hybrid subject Zyra 43 is experiencing neural destabilization. Lion's head snapped toward her. What does that mean? Zyra looked pale. Her hand trembled. The bond was rushed. She said, my body is still adjusting, and now under stress the connection is collapsing. Liam moved closer, panic rising. What do we do? A full neural sync. She said, quietly, we must complete the bond now. What happens if we don't? He asked. Zyra looked away. I die. The word tongue in the air like a knife. Liam didn't hesitate. He took her hand and helped her lie down gently. Her breathing was shallow, now her skin flickering with strange pulses of light. Her body was overheating. Her system was shutting down. The only way to stabilize her was to fully connect mind to mind, heart to heart. He placed his hand over her chest and closed his eyes. I'm here, he whispered. You're not alone then. Something incredible happened. A soft light bloomed between them, spreading across the room like a golden mist there. Minds touched, not just in feeling, but in memory. Liam saw Zyde as a child training, with weapons before she could speak. He saw her crying in secret when no one was watching. He saw her fighting, surviving, always alone. And Zyra saw him. She saw his broken past of friends. He lost the pain he buried with every smile she felt. His quiet strength, his fear, his hope. And then the light wrapped around them both and locked into place. Outside, rebel soldiers reached the door, but paused when they saw the golden glow through the small glass window. They had heard stories of the full bond, but no one had ever seen it until now. Inside the room, Zyra opened her eyes, and for first time in her life, she felt whole, merged souls, shared power. Zyra opened her eyes slowly, as if waking from a dream that lasted 1,000 years. Her chest rose and fell with deep, steady breaths. The pain that had twisted through her body was gone. The heat, the tremors, the fear, they had melted away. What remained was something new, something strange, and yet peaceful. Liam sat beside her, his hand still resting gently over hers. His eyes were tired, but clear. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. They both felt the quiet hum between them, the way their breathing matched without effort, the way their thoughts brushed against each other like soft waves on a shore. The bond was complete, but it was more than just survival. Something deeper had awakened. Zyra could feel his heartbeat even when he wasn't touching her. She could sense his thoughts, not his words, but his feelings. Warm concern, strength, and a deep, steady kindness that wrapped around her like a shield. Liam looked at her, voice low and calm. How do you feel? Zyra blinked once, then said something she had never said before. I feel alive. They sat there in silence, the golden glow slowly fading around them. Outside the locked chamber, the rebel soldiers stood frozen. The glow had stopped them, not by force, but by presence. They didn't know what to do next. They had come to destroy a program, but now they were witnessing something powerful, something they didn't understand. Zara stood slowly, and with grace her movements were different now, smoother, more fluid. She no longer carried herself like a lone warrior. Her steps had a quiet confidence, a grounded calm that hadn't been there Before it was as if she no longer needed to fight for herself alone. She wasn't just Valari anymore, and Liam, he could feel it too, something inside him had shifted. His thoughts were clearer, his senses sharper, his pain both. Physical and emotional seemed further away, as if shared and softened by the bond. He looked at Zyra and saw not just a warrior, not just a partner, but a reflection of everything he had been. Missing a voice crackled through the old speaker near the wall. It was the council. Broken and panicked, Subject Zyra 43 and Subject Liam Cross, you have completed. The full mural sync you must report to the command chamber at once. Zyra turned toward the speaker, her expression calm, but firm. We will come, she said, on our own terms. They left the room hand in hand. As they walked through the corridors, the station shifted around them. Soldiers who once stared with suspicion now watched with quiet, or rebels lowered their weapons. Other bonded pairs stopped in their tracks. The bond between Liam and Zyra radiated like a signal, strong, clear, undeniable. Some tried to speak, others simply stepped aside, but not everyone was ready to surrender. As they reached the upper platform, a blast shook the station. A new rebel wave had arrived, led by extremists who wanted not just to destroy the program, but to wipe out any trace of it, including Zyra and Liam. Laser fire cut across the halls. Drones dropped from above. Chaos returned like a flood, but this time Liam and Zayas didn't run. They stood side by side, and something ancient surged through them. Zyra's body glowed faintly as her muscles flexed with power. Her blade, once heavy, moved like a feather in her hands. Every movement she made was matched by Lamb, whose reflexes now felt enhanced. Their thoughts were linked, no words needed. When she dodged left, he blocked right. When he struck forward, she swept in from behind. And together they were unstoppable. The rebel soldiers tried to separate them, but it was like trying to split water from flame. Every attempt only made them stronger, and when one of the rebels fired a direct shot at Liam's chest, Zyra moved before the beam left the barrel. She caught it with a spin of her arm, redirecting the blast with a shield she hadn't known she could form. After 20 minutes of battle, the rebels began to fall back. They hadn't been beaten by weapons or numbers. They had been beaten by unity, by the bond. The remaining rebels surrendered. The council guard secured the hall's silence. Fell once more. Liam and Zyra stood in the center of the platform, breathing hard, but unshaken. Their clothes were torn, their faces marked with battle, but their eyes were clear, sharp, full of light. A broadcast signal blinked to life. Across GGS, species of all kinds tuned into see what had happened. They expected to see bloodshed, a failure, proof that bonding between enemies was foolish. Instead, they saw something beautiful, a human and a Vel standing side by side, alive and whole, not as subjects of a failed experiment, but as living proof that something greater was possible. And across the stars something changed, not in law, not in war, but in hope. A new kind of future. The station slowly returned to order. The fires were put out. The rebels were disarmed and detained. The broken walls were repaired, and the silence that followed the chaos fell deeper than before. Not a silence of fear, but one of reflection, of something ending and something beginning. Zyra and Liam were called to the High Council chamber, the very heart of the pairing program. It was a vast room made of glass and metal. Hanging above the stars, the council sat at a curved table, their eyes tired, their voices quieter than before. They had built the program to end war, to blend species, to rewrite history, but they had not expected it to evolve on its own. The leader of the council, a pale, skinned being with silver eyes, leaned forward and spoke softly. You have completed the bond, not just physically, not just genetically, but emotionally. The results are beyond what we imagined. Liam glanced at Zyra. She gave the smallest nod, and he stepped forward. You created this program with control in mind. Liam said you wanted peace, yes, but peace built on rules and force. You didn't ask us if we wanted to be part of it. You didn't give us a choice. He paused and added, but we made our own choice, and that's why it worked. Zyra stepped forward beside him. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. The bond cannot be measured in data. It is not a tool for power. It is something that must grow, and that growth begins with trust. The council members looked at one another for the first time. They had no orders to give, no script to follow. They simply listened. Finally, the decision came. The pairing protocol would end. No more forced matches, no more hidden breeding experiments. The research would remain, but it would be used only for education. For those who chose to study it, freely bonding from now on would be voluntary. Based on connection on truth, Liam and Zyra were offered freedom. They could leave the station, return to their lives, or go anywhere in the galaxy they wished. But they didn't leave. Instead, they accepted a different path. They became ambassadors for a new program, not built by the Council, but by people pairs who had bonded, who had seen beyond species, and bloodlines began gathering on a new spaceport built in orbit around a neutral star. It became a sanctuary, a place where humans and Valari and others from countless worlds could meet without judgment, a place of listening, healing, and shared learning. Zyra trained young Valari warriors who had never known gentleness. She taught them to breathe before they struck, to feel before they judge, and when she told stories of her bond with a human, the young ones leaned. In wide-eyed and silent, Liam taught strategy and empathy. He worked with human soldiers returning from the front lines, helping them understand what it meant to serve something bigger than just duty. He spoke openly about fear, about connection, and about the strength that comes from understanding someone who once seemed so different. They share a home on the station, simple, quiet, filled with plants from both their home planets. The air smelled of spice and earth. In the evenings, they sat together near the viewing deck, watching the stars in silence, sometimes speaking, sometimes not. They didn't always need words. One night, Zyra turned to Lamb and asked, "Do you miss who you were before we met?" Liam thought for a long time. Then he said, "I miss parts of him, but I think I became who I was meant to be because of you." She reached for his hand. Her fingers still felt like steel wrapped in silk, strong, warm, sure. "And I became more than what they made me," she whispered. "Because of you." Their bond was no longer just energy or instinct. It was history, now shared moments, memories, scars, laughter, silence. Life. Some said their story changed everything. Others said it was just one small drop in the galaxy. But for those who had seen the battle, for those who had watched two enemies become something more, it was enough to believe, enough to hope, enough to begin again.